He's saying in 3 minutes.
I'm just hanging out. I'm waiting for him. I got a little rug here. I mean, it makes me get so close to you. I don't know.
Yeah,
Over here, and I'm like, I don't want people to think, you know, like, what's she sitting so close to? To land her for? Because he's my friend.
there you go.
Yeah.
We don't have to explain that to him.
That's right. I don't care what they think. They don't pay my salary. That's what I tell people. You don't pay my salary, so until you do, I ain't listening. It's 29. No, 28. Better put my glasses on so I can see. I would like to welcome everyone to the Henry County Zoning Board meeting of Thursday, January the 29th, 2015. At this time, we're going to take care of some housekeeping items. This meeting is being televised live on Charter Channel 180 and AT&T UVerse Channel 99, and will be rebroadcast every Thursday at 7 o'clock p.m. and is available by video on demand at the county website. Now would be a good time to turn off your cell phones. If you wish to speak tonight, you will need to fill out a public hearing speaking card. We will allot 10 minutes for those who want to speak in favor of this case and 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of the case. For example, if 10 people wish to speak, they all share in the 10-minute slot and so forth. And there is a clock up here so you can keep up with your time. And we'd like for you to address the board and not the audience. So if you turn your back to us, we're going to assume that you're finished speaking and we're going to ask you to be seated, okay? All right, at this time, we're going to have DeLander Nelson to lead us in the invocation and pledge.
Stand, please. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for all of your wonderful blessings, and we ask that you continue to bless this community. We ask that you bless this board and guide us in our decision making. These things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is now called to order. Do you have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Alexander has a motion to approve the agenda. It was seconded by Mr. Risher. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by raising your hand. Motion carried. Thank you. At this time, we're going to ask the staff if there are any comments.
Madam Chairman, just for the public record, this is a called zoning advisory board meeting in regards to the item on the agenda. This is outside of the normal schedule, which is every other month. Once we complete this tonight's public hearing, the normal ZAB schedule will resume, and the next meeting will be in March.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, if the staff will call the case.
ULDC-AM-14-04. Amendment to Chapter 4, Section 4.02.02, Fairview Road Overlay District, for the purpose of clarifying uses, structures, vested properties, and character area or land use map changes, and to amend section 12.02.11, requirements for amendments to the ULDC, to grant authority to planning and zoning staff to initiate ULDC amendments. This item is presented by Dante Gibbs, Director.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and Zoning Advisory Board members.
Good evening.
At the request of the Henry County Board of Commissioners, Planning and Zoning staff reviewed the Fairview Road Overlay District language pertaining to uses, structures, vested properties, and character area land use map changes in section 4.02.02 of the ULDC. And we also reviewed ULDC section 12.02.11 regarding requirements for amendments to the ULDC. This request was in part a result of respective property and business owners located within the boundaries of the Fairview Road Overlay District expressing concern regarding the provisions of the overlay district, and to also grant authority to planning and zoning staff to initiate ULDC amendments. With that being said, planning staff recommends adding specific language to Chapter 4, Section 40202, Fairview Road Overlay District, and Section 120211 as follows. As it pertains to Section 4.02.02 D2 regarding uses, planning staff recommends adding the following subsection and language. Subsection 2, and pardon me while I place it on the overhead. Prohibited uses, and it will read, except as permitted under section 4.02.02J2, no property within the residential character area may be used for any non-residential use. Regarding section 4.02.02J, non-conforming uses, staff recommends adding the following subsection and language. Subsection 2, regarding vested and grandfathered non-conforming uses. To avoid undue hardship, the lawful but non-conforming use of any structure or land at the time of the enactment of this overlay or any subsequent amendment may be continued even though the use does not conform to the provisions of this overlay, except that the non-conforming use shall not be changed to another non-conforming use, shall not be reestablished after abandonment or removal from the property for more than 15 days in the case of a non-conforming manufactured home, or its abandonment for 6 months or more for all other uses, unless the premises are under a continuing lease but are unoccupied by the nonconforming use, regardless of the intent of the owner or occupier to resume the nonconforming use. Shall not be extended to occupy any area of land not contained within the current lot of record. Shall not be extended into any new building or structure unless such new building or structure is connected to existing buildings or structures and is contained wholly within the land currently utilized for the nonconforming use. If an existing use was lawfully established in a zoning district that is subsequently amended to require conditional use approval for such use, the existing use shall not require a conditional use permit. Any intended but not yet existing nonconforming use for which a vested right was acquired prior to the adoption of this overlay or the adoption of an amendment to it shall be prohibited unless such intended nonconforming use for which a vested right was acquired is actually commenced within 1 year of the adoption of this overlay district or the adoption of an amendment to it, regardless of the intent or expectation to commence or abandon such nonconforming use. Number 3 of the same subsection. Notwithstanding anything to the contrary herein, the vested grandfathered status created herein may be transferred and assigned to a new owner of the real property to which such rights apply, provided, however, that the new owner, in order to avail himself of such rights, must put the property to the vested grandfathered use within 6 months of the date of the sale of the real property. As it pertains to Section 40202 M, character area land use map changes, and pardon me while I place it on the overhead. just needed to move it up a little bit. We recommend the following language. Any property owner may apply for an amendment to the Henry County Fairview Road overlay map. Amendments may request the expansion of a character area, a change in character area designation, or removal from the overlay. Applications for amendments shall be processed in accordance with Section 120209, requirements for amending the official zoning map, which is a rezoning of the ULDC. And I would like to also add that specifically to this section, anyone requesting anything listed here will have to come to the Zoning Advisory Board for recommendation, and that recommendation, along with staff recommendation, will be taken to the Board of Commissioners for final decision. Staff also recommends the following amendment to Section 120211. Regarding requirements for amendments to the ULDC. And it will read, this ULDC may be amended by the Board of Commissioners on its own motion or by the initiation of planning and zoning staff. Otherwise, a complete application package shall be required as described below. And the described below is referencing our current language and current process in our Unified Land Development Code. The requested amendment will have no effect on the comprehensive plan. The requested amendment will have a direct impact on the character and quality of development within the Fairview Road Overlay District, in that the requested amendment will provide assurances to vested property and business owners that existing uses established prior to the adoption of the Fairview Road Overlay District will be protected and permitted by the provisions of the Overlay District. The requested amendment will have little to no impact on the provision of infrastructure and improvements. The merits of the proposed amendment will support the land use policies of our comprehensive plan that encourage the use of landscaping, signage, building design standards, and underground utilities to add value to our community, as well as gateways and corridors that create a sense of place for our community. With that being said, planning staff recommends approval of the amendment to Chapter 4, Section 40202, Fairview Road Overlay District, for the purpose of clarifying uses, structures, vested properties, and character area land use map changes, and to amend Section 120211, requirements for amendments to the ULDC to grant authority to planning and zoning staff to initiate ULDC amendments. At this time, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, at this time, do any of the board members have any questions for staff?
I do.
Mr. Nelson.
Dante, just to clarify for the record, this amendment applies to the overlay in its entirety or just one specific location?
The entire overlay. It's the Fairview Road Overlay District.
Okay.
It's language added to it.
And based on the staff's approval, do you feel like this is the best approach to take for the county?
This approach is an agreeable compromise between the county and the parties, the affected parties, that kind of sparked the discussion about the language. From a staff's perspective, I think this accomplishes what the intent of the overlay district is. It maintains it. It doesn't give everybody everything they want, but it maintains the overall character of the Fairview Road Overlay District.
Okay. So if there's a business that's in a non-conforming status today, do they remain in that status, or what takes place?
If they existed prior to the adoption of the Fairview Road Overlay District, then they would fall under this vested grandfathered use language and clause of this amendment. And in the event that they decide to change the use, then their grandfathered clause or their grandfathered status goes away, and they have to comply with all the regulations of the Fairview Road Overlay District.
Okay. And if there is any zoning requirements, that would have to come before the board?
Absolutely.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay, anyone else have any questions for staff?
I think it would be helpful.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
That's okay, I just, for the record, so that they'll know that you're speaking. That's okay.
All right, I would like to, what you, when we were in the session earlier, I think it was very helpful when you pointed out to us, it was like you said, it was a compromise, and exactly how it was broke down and like what each side kind of, gave a little bit, and I think that kind of helped us or me understand better. And could you kind of review that with us again there?
Sure. Planning and zoning staff, county management, the county attorney, the legal representation of the applicant of a particular business within the Fairview Road Overlay District all met at one point or another within the last several months and discussed language. And the language that you saw tonight on the overhead was an agreeable compromise to accomplish and maintain the character of the Fairview Road Overlay District. Does that answer your question, Mr. Alexander?
Well, I think what you said was, when we talked earlier, I think that, there was basically in our meeting, there was an approval of it, and then subsequent to the approval, what precipitated, the meeting in November precipitated the necessity of this compromise, which I think Copart came back and y'all had a talk about what their concerns were, and then what the residents' concerns were. So both sides in general were heard.
Could you give a little bit more clarity on what you mean by the approval?
Well, there was approval by this board. It wasn't a unanimous vote, but we had an approval by this board, and we sent it to them. They're sending it back to us at this point with a change in language. There was the change in language was precipitated, as I understand, by Copart, feeling that there were some restrictions placing upon them, but at the same time, the residents' concerns were addressed also into the fact that now they have, the rights that they were ensued as property owner to be able to sell the property, but the neighborhood would also be protected in them not being able to expand past their current boundaries.
What this language accomplishes is that it allows Copart on their current property to utilize it as under the legally nonconforming industrial zoning that they currently have. It limits their ability to expand to other properties. In the event that happens, under the grandfather clause, that changes the boundary. In order to maintain their vested and grandfather status, the boundary cannot change. If that boundary changes, then they must comply with the current regulations in the Fairview Road Overlay District, which means a rezoning would need to happen for them to become the slotted residential zoning for that area.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other board members have any questions for staff? Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, at this time, we're going to have comments from the public, and for those that want to speak in favor of the text amendment. So what we're hearing tonight is comments about the text amendment that was just presented by staff to the overlay district, not about a particular business, but about the text amendment that was just read. So if you want to speak in favor of the text amendment, please come forward. State your name and address for the record.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Houston Nelson. My address is 2504 Walter Way in the beautiful city of Stockbridge. Anyway, I want to greet the chair and the members of the board this evening. And I don't want to take up too much time because we only have 10 minutes, so I don't see a clock, though. So you might have to help me.
Right up here, sir. See it?
Okay, there it is. Thank you. I'm definitely in favor of the new language. You know, there was a perception in the community that the board had not heard from the community, and that the representatives from Copart and some of their, I guess, community allies had kind of bogarted their way into the process. And I'm just glad to hear that this board did their due diligence with the help of, staff. I want to thank you for your work as well, to put language in that preserves the integrity of the Fairview Overlay District. I'm also here as a representative of the Henry County chapter of the NAACP, and I sit on their board of directors. And we know that for years, Henry County did their best to try to keep black people out of Henry County. And I think that during that time that they've tried to do that, they may have forgotten some of the infrastructural things that were needed in this county over the years. And so now that the community in Henry County is more diverse, the people that live here are just as committed to this community as the people that have always been here. And that is, we want to keep Henry County looking nice. We want to have good schools. We want to have viable neighborhoods. We want to have successful businesses. And I think that this decision tonight, in the effort of compromise, keeps that, and it really puts northern Henry County on the map. So again, I want to say thank you for your hard work, and I think this is a great representation of this community and how much they care about what you do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
Anyone else like to speak in favor of the case, or the text amendment, excuse me? Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Carlotta Harrell. I live at 261 Hunting Court, Lake Spivey, Georgia. I live in District 5. I'm here basically, I'm in support of the compromise. I think that it will be good for the community as a whole, for District 5 as a whole, to be able to have standards in our community. And I watched the last planning and zoning meeting on television, and you know, to the chair, I don't really appreciate the comments that you made that if we cared about our community, we would have been there at that particular meeting. Had we known that we needed to be there, we would have been there. That's why we have the representation out here tonight that we have. We do care about our community, and just want to make sure that the Planning Advisory Board understand that we do care, and we will be watching anything that impacts our community. The one concern that I have is the environmental issues with regards to Cole Park. What is the county doing to make sure that they are abiding by all EPA and EPD rules and regulations? Because anytime you have any type of cars that leak any type of fluids, that can get into our ground. It can get into our groundwater, which impacts our drinking water. So there are some environmental issues that many of us have concerns about. With the trucks that come and go from that facility, you're talking about air quality as well. And with the high cases of asthma and respiratory problems that many people suffer with, that impacts our community. And you know, for whatever reason, people think that it's okay because it's a largely African American community that things can exist in our community. But we want to let you know that we are here, we're watching, and we're going to make sure that our community is protected. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak in favor of the case? Anyone else like to speak in favor of the text amendment? I'll give you a few more minutes if anybody wants to come up. Okay. Sir, you want to? This is speaking in favor of the text amendment. And we'll give 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition as soon as he gets finished.
My name is Norval Broom, and I live at 123 Celtic Court in Ellenwood, Georgia. I moved to Georgia in 2009. Bought a beautiful home here. Spent a lot of money for it that I've been saving all of my life in order to come to a place that had the bucolic atmosphere and the surrounding neighborhoods that I wanted to live in my senior years. And I was asked to sit on the overlay district board by Commissioner Bruce Holmes. And I enjoyed meeting many of the citizens of the community. We all worked very hard on that overlay. And we thought we had something in place that everybody would agree to. I never knew about the existence of Coparts until one of the people on the board came to this meeting and represented Coparts in opposition to things that he'd already agreed to during our deliberations relative to the overlay district. So I was very disappointed about that. Having worked on the overlay district, though, I believe that this compromise is just. I believe that it should be adopted, and I too agree that it will raise, it'll keep the community beautiful, and I think as a taxpayer, you know, we deserve keeping our community beautiful and bucolic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a few more minutes for anyone else who would like to speak. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Raymond Davis. I live at 100 Leland Cypress Way. About a year ago, a year and a half ago, I moved to Henry County from Clayton County. And when I made the transition, I made it because I want to put my kids in a better quality neighborhood, better quality schools. And so when stuff like this comes up about the quality of our neighborhoods, I do want you guys to know that we do care. We care very much about our area. It concerns me when I look at my area and I go 1 mile across the end of the cab and I see their neighborhoods. And so whenever you guys make decisions, because I sell real estate, and there's one thing they ask when I do a BPO, which is an appraisal. They say, what is around those homes that would impact the value of those homes? So if whenever you guys make a decision, because taxes are higher in this county than Clayton, whenever you make a decision for our lot, for North Henry, since that's what we're talking about, please consider whatever you allow in that area. Because most people I know that move to that area move there because they want a better quality of lifestyle, they want better schools, and they want a better area to live in. So whenever you come up and make a decision, look at it like this. Is that what you would want where you live? No, not. It's not funny. I'm not trying to be cute. I appreciate y'all's decision. I really do. I appreciate y'all's decisions to keep it like it is. I appreciate that. Because people only move to that area because they want to live in a nice area where they can put their kids in schools that are better. And we don't want things coming up in that area that's going to destroy it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have about 1 minute left. If a little bit, anyone else like to speak in favor of the text amendment? Okay, I'm going to call it, and then I'm going to now allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of the text amendment. So if you want to speak in opposition of the text amendment, we'll ask you to please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Virgil Price. I live 373 Cook Road in the middle of all of this right here where Copart is at. And they have did nothing that the first time we met about this since they moved there. They never did nothing they was supposed to do. It wasn't supposed to be not one car come on Cook Road. They tear up the road. They done knocked my mailbox down 4 or 5 times. I called them one time. Now, I went up to Copart. They never did nothing about it. They just tear up the road and they come constantly and turn around in my yard, busting up my driveway with these big trucks. It's a big mud hole right in front of my driveway where these trucks, and they won't do nothing. And they done been to about 3 managers up there, and they know me because I done been up there time and time again, but nothing is never done. I even complained to the police officers that you got signs up there, but you never stop these trucks. They're going up and down Cook Road, which they never supposed to be on there from the start. They're supposed to come in on the north side of Clark Road, not on Cook Road, period. And then if you expand it, it's more and more trucks on my street. I've been there since '95, and it's never been like this. And it was a bad decision from the jump because I didn't think it was going to be like this because they said they was going to come in from the upper side. They tearing up my road, tearing up my driveway, and knocking down my mailbox. I live straight across the street from them. I'm within about 50 feet of that sound barrier, which don't work. On Saturday mornings, forklift up and down them gravels all morning long. I hear it constantly. But my main problem is that they keep coming these cars up and down this road, and nobody does nothing about it. Nothing. Not even the police officers. If they want revenue, they can stop them trucks going up and down that street. And they don't do it because they constantly up and down the street. And it needs to stop. It needs to stop. They've been a bad neighbor. I thought it was a good decision from the start, but it's bad because I live right straight in front of it. Thank you.
7:18.
Okay, we have about 7 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of the text amendment.
Mildred Schmelz, 170 Dink Scott Court, Ellenwood, Georgia, 30294. Madam Chair, other members of the board, I have lived in Henry County for 21 years, and I love Henry County, but I don't want a junkyard in my backyard. And I guess I'm asking for a little bit of clarification, Madam Chair and board, on the amendment language, because it appears that if Copart decides to sell this piece of property, that whomever buys it can go in and not be in the overlay and can do whatever they want. And I guess I need a little bit of clarification on the new language, the new amendment. I'm just totally opposed to junkyards that are going to make our county look bad. I'm opposed to it. And Northern Henry County, we're trying to do some things up there to improve that area. I love Henry County, but I do not want a junkyard in my backyard.
Good evening. I'm Carl Swenson, live at 43 Thurman Road, and I've been watching what's going on with the overlay. In opposition to it, because the language that I hear being bandied about tonight is really kind of disconcerting. I hear control and I hear compromise. To my knowledge, they aren't making any compromises. Only you guys are. To my knowledge, they don't have control. You do. What we're seeing here is, once again, the evilness of Agenda 21 as manifest in these boards. You have no business doing what you're doing here with this overlay. This is an abomination. You're exerting control over a group of people. For what reason? I haven't really gotten the reason yet. To keep the place looking nice? These people are here tonight because they're concerned about their neighborhood. They are responsible. You're treating them like they're not and telling them what to do with their property. I'm sorry, but this does not in any way, work in a society and the country that I grew up in. We are responsible for ourselves. You don't tell us what to do with our property. Thank you.
Okay, we have a few more minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of the text amendment. Okay, I don't see anyone else coming up, so we're going to close off the public comment. So if I can get staff to come back forward, and at this time, any board members have any questions for staff before we call the case?
I have one question for staff. There was some concerns, Dante, can you address the issue in terms of the actual concern that came about?
Is there a specific concern you would like me to address?
Well, we have one that has some concern in terms of Copart being able to, if they sell the property.
Okay, sure. The way the language is positioned is that if Copart decides to sell, whomever the new owner of the property will be has 6 months to continue the non-conforming legal use. In the event that they do not continue that use, they lose their vested rights, and they have to comply with all of the regulations listed in the Fairview Road Overlay District.
Does the text, or is there any language that allows Copart to expand beyond the existing property that they have?
There is no language that allows them to expand. The way the language is written, they are limited to the boundaries of the lot of record currently.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for staff before we vote on this text amendment?
I got one other question I'd like to ask, Dante. Now, if this text is not approved, what effect does it have in terms of where we are today? What happens?
That question is kind of one that could be answered in a number of ways. If this language is not approved, then Copart can proceed to the Board of Commissioners to request to opt out, as they initiated, I believe, November of 2014.
Okay. And with that being said, they have the possibility of expanding. Is that correct?
In the event that they would try to expand to additional property, that would negate their legal non-conforming use under the current language of the Fairview Road Overlay District, and so they would still have to comply with the current designations in the Fairview Road Overlay District.
Okay. Well, the question, if they opt out, then they would be able to. Is that what you were saying, or?
If you're asking if they opt out, what happens? Mm-hmm. In the event that they are approved to opt out, then they are no longer in the overlay and no longer bound by those regulations.
By passing this text amendment, they're agreeing to remain in the overlay at this point, not opting out and foregoing their ability to expand, correct?
This language will allow them to stay where they are on their property under the current overlay district regulations, and well, the language that we're presenting to you tonight, and utilize the current property under the legally non-conforming industrially zoned designation, but they cannot expand to other properties.
I just want to say one thing. I wrote through your community to the audience. Is that okay or is that not okay?
Well, right now you're asking staff for any questions. So our comment period is over.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if you call the case, please.
ULDC-AM-14-04, amendment to Chapter 4, Section 4.02.02, Fairview Road Overlay District for the purpose of clarifying uses, structures, vested properties, and character area or land use map changes, and to amend Section 12.02.11, requirements for amendments to the ULDC to grant authority to planning and zoning staff to initiate ULDC amendments.
Do I have a motion for this text amendment?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the text amendment per staff recommendation.
I have a motion by Mr. Nelson. Do I have a second? I have a second by Mr. Alexander. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Carried unanimously. Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, at this time, we have a motion to adjourn? Okay, motion to adjourn. Okay.
Thank you.